which is our fourth or fifth event now across different electorates for 1 Million Women's She Votes campaign, and they've been really excellent chats. Before we begin, as you will see, we are recording this event and we will be sending these out on public channels. So if you can ensure that you keep your microphone muted through the session, that would be fantastic. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land which we are all on today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I wish to acknowledge any Torres Strait and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who have and do reside within the area who may be on the call. And I acknowledge and uphold their intrinsic connection and continuing relationship to country. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders belong to the oldest continuous living culture in the world, and their sovereignty over their lands have never been ceded. This land, Bradfield, has a rich and deep history, and connection with our environment is why we are here today. Our land, water, and sky are all impacted by human activity, and now, as always, we need to make significant changes to avert, adapt to, and build resilience to the ongoing and continuing impacts of climate change. So while we get ready, we'd love for everyone to say hi in the chat. Tell us where you're from in Bradfield. And if you already have a question you're dying to ask our candidate panel who are here tonight, please add that as well. We'd also really love for everybody for about a minute to turn on their video. It's something that we like to do with 1 Million Women, so that we can take some screenshots and have a photo with everybody who's joined us for the evening. It's a great way to just record the amazing people who come to our discussions. So just 1 minute, that would be fantastic. To start our discussions tonight, I'm going to hand over to Bree Kennedy from 1 Million Women. She's the head of campaigns and digital, and she is just an amazing woman and a gun at everything she does. And she's going to set the scene tonight for everybody. Over to you, Bree.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Really excited that you could join us. So yeah, just a bit of context about 1 Million Women and this work that we've been doing. We really wanted to figure out what our focus should be for the last couple of years, and we wanted to have the biggest impact that we could as a movement. And we really decided to focus on households because that is our bread and butter. We've always talked about individual action, and we always want to keep it relatable and keep it at the level of just regular individuals. Australia's 10 million households are responsible for 10 to 15% of all of the climate pollution produced in Australia, and you can double that figure if vehicles are included, so closer to about 20%. So that is the section that we really wanted to focus on. And we can eliminate this pollution by replacing gas appliances and petrol and diesel cars with efficient electric alternatives and powering our homes with solar wherever possible. And that's kind of the work that we've been really focused on for the last couple of years. We've been, educating women on how we electrify our homes with as many experts that we have pulled together to, share. And we also went to Canberra in February with a delegation of 23 women from across the country. And our ask was really clear. We want government support for 1 million households to electrify or take steps to electrify within the next term of government. We had 26 meetings over 3 days, so it was a really jam-packed couple of days, but the chats were very positive. I feel like we had a lot of good, we had meetings with politicians from across the political spectrum, and we do think that this is something that every politician can get behind in one shape or another, even if, the policy slightly differs. We did have, a lot of positive response from the discussions we were having. And our aim in Canberra was really just to connect the real women's stories with the kind of federal political discourse, which, sometimes feels disconnected. So that was, our trip to Canberra. And we know that our community wants to electrify because last year we did a survey, one of our annual surveys, and 4,400 women responded to this survey, and over 90% told us that they had taken some steps to electrify or made their home more energy efficient or bring down their power bills. And it's something that we're hearing, across our social media channels. People really, it's front of mind, cost of living and climate and environment. So in that survey, we received thousands of positive electrification stories, which was really great. But also many people told us that they face barriers to act, like, upfront costs, lack of support from government, things like that. So there's a few things that stood out in that survey. Just under 60% of women said that they would take advantage of electrification incentives or rebates if they were available and if there was more available than what is currently. And we also asked, when asked, a lot of the women when asked if they vote for a candidate or a political party because they have got strong climate policies, 80% of women said they have done before, and 75% said they would do in the next 3 years. So that is, of course, including this next election, which is coming up very soon. So, yeah, we really believe at 1 Million Women that if you want to see these policies come to fruition, one of the most powerful things you can do is vote for them from an informed place. So that's why we've put on these events, this run of events. And tonight's event, of course, is about knowing where each of the candidates in Bradfield stands on the issues that matter to you. So we know that households are hurting with rising bills and insurance costs, and we know that this won't get better without intervention. So we really want to know what the candidates' plans are to address both climate and cost of living, and what their future vision for Bradfield is if they are elected. So thanks, Paula, and I'm really excited for the chat today.
Awesome. Thanks, Bree. So I am also really excited about this chat. I do have to find, always have to manage my own excitement and want to ask all the questions when I've got the ability to speak to people. But I will share the space, I promise. I was part of the 1 Million Women delegation that we went to Canberra with as well, that Bree talked about. And I also spend time in my community advocating for climate change. And advocacy activities means interacting with all the levels of government. And these forums, and we've had 3 or 4 now, they've been fantastic. In the crazy election days are really important opportunities to ask your potential representatives and the candidates all the questions that you want to know around their policies around climate and household electrification. The delegation to Canberra was a really great reminder for me, and I keep spruiking this to anybody who will listen to me, that we have to talk to our representatives about big issues and that we can do it, we need to do it, and that's actually their job. So this is a great opportunity for everybody to ask questions. I'm going to introduce our candidate panel tonight. I'll start in alphabetical order, but firstly, a massive warm welcome to everybody for coming, because we really appreciate you giving up your time. In alphabetical order, we have Nicolette Boele, who's running as our community independent for Bradfield. Nicolette, thank you for joining us. We have Gisele Kaptarian from the Liberal Party, who is running as the incumbent MP for Fletcher, has now retired. Welcome, Gisele. I will flag a couple of things. Gisele's having some internet issues, so we might not see her very much, and we'll see with no camera, and so we can hear her, but also she will be leaving us at 7:45. So if you have any questions for Gisele, throw them in the chat now, and we'll try to get to them earlier on. We also have with us Eddie Lloyd, who is the Greens Senate candidate. Eddie is with us to represent New South Wales Greens, as Harjit Singh, the candidate for Bradfield, is unavailable tonight. So thank you, Eddie, for taking the time too.
Thanks.
And we also have Louise McCallum from the Australian Labor Party, who is, I assume, in Bradfield. We're all around the place. Welcome and thank you. It's great to have you all here. It's fabulous. It's an all-woman panel. Love it. Okay, so tonight's event is an opportunity to ask questions, like I've said. It's not intended as a debate, so candidates are asked not to rebut verbally. This will help us stay on track and get through as many questions as we can. Again, if you've got a question, throw it in the chat now. If you've got it a question that's directly for a particular candidate, please note that so that we can go to the candidate, and then we'll provide an opportunity for everybody else to respond if they would like to. In order to get through as many questions as possible, we're going to try and stick to a 1 minute response time for each question. This has and sometimes been working, but we will we'll definitely try our best. And then what we're going to do after the Q&A is Michelle Rawson, another one of our 1 Million Women team, is going to provide a bit of an overview about our preferential voting system. It's really important to understand it, to be able to really make sure your vote counts and that you can vote strategically for the issues that matter to you, because there are lots of little tips and tricks that Michelle's going to tell you about. Okay, so to get into the questions, I've got a couple of questions just to set the scene, and then we'll throw straight to the Q&A because we want to hear from the people. So the first question I have is, love to have a short intro about yourself, just to give everybody a bit of info, and then also just perhaps share something around what surprised you in this campaign. I don't know and also note if you've done it before. Is this your first year, second or your third campaign as well? So I'm going to start with Nicolette. Thanks, Nicolette.
Thanks, Paula. Hi, I'm Nicolette Boele. I'm the community independent running in Bradfield, and thank you very much to 1 Million Women. Call out to Nat, Michelle and Bree for your work on this. Women, we do make a lot of the decisions in the home around groceries, around power bills. We are, in fact, the economic managers of the household most broadly. And so that's what I love about being able to engage with a group like this who really understands, the price of milk and the $4.50 lettuce and these things, because we're making those decisions every day. So I've been working in climate and clean energy and finance for about 35 years. And I ran for Parliament in 2022. It wasn't really on my bucket list, but I've got two kids. They're now 20 and 23. But at the time, my son kind of asked me how he should vote, and I really was not particularly proud when I said, look, it's been one party for so many years. Don't bother, unless you support the party, that's how it's going to work. And I thought, that's just terrible. No, that's the worst type of answer from a parent to a child. And there were a number of things that happened, and this community group were looking for a candidate and asked if I would consider running. And I said no, and they said, great, you've passed the first test because we don't want anyone who actually wants to do it. Now, this is not something that's new. Independent movement has been happening for many years, but it's quite new to Bradfield. There have been other independents before. We've had Kylie Tink in North Sydney, for example, which has now been abolished. But it is about better representation. It's about putting community first. And so I've decided to run because I think we get better solutions in the Parliament. We have a diversity of people, and particularly more women. And that's certainly what I'm offering, not just because I'm a woman, but because I'm an independent and I can really help breaking the deadlock on some of the issues that the major parties are just a little bit stuck on, like climate, like power bills, like housing. So shall I answer the question, Paula, quickly on something that's been surprising?
Yeah.
I think when we ran last time in 2022, we had 640 volunteers on election day, where it's getting close. What are we, halfway through? We've got 2.5 weeks to go. And just like Tuesday, we start pre-polling, but we're just short of 1,300 volunteers this time. And for a really kind of reasonably conservative, but socially engaged area, I find that the North Shore doing politics is the surprise. And so I'm really proud that we've got so many democracy workers, and not just independents, but you see them in the Liberal Party and Labor and Greens, and it's really great that people are out engaged in this very tight election this time.
Yeah, I have to admit, active democracy seems to be really happening this election, which is fantastic. So over to
sorry about
Louise.
rushing. Oh. I'm aware that Gisele needs to leave, so I'm rushing through.
No, it's okay. We'll be all right. Okay, Louise. There you
You're
go.
right. Hi, everyone. I'm Louise. I'm the Labor candidate for Bradfield. To answer your question, why did I get involved? Well, I'm one of those people that's been ranting at the TV for many years and driving everyone in my household mad. And particularly during the 2010s, I was watching what was going on and getting incredibly angry and feeling really disappointed and worried about the future. I've got 3 kids and I started getting quite anxious about what their future looked like, particularly when it came to climate change and nothing was happening and there wasn't a housing minister. So, I was just really worried. So then 2022 arrived, and for the first time in a long time, I really felt a lot more hope. And I could see that the Albanese government was really serious, particularly about the environment. You know, as soon as they got in, they took immediate action about enshrining our emissions target into law. So that was really reassuring. And then watching them over the last 3 years, they've rolled out an enormous amount of policies that are really addressing lots of issues around climate change and the environment. But meanwhile, I was still sitting on the couch. And then there was one event that got me up completely off the couch, and that was the election of Trump. And it really alarmed me because I could see that there were clear parallels with the coalition here. I mean, issues like opposing the voice, divisiveness, the rise of the right-wing faction in that party, and my alarm has continued because I can see that they're still head in the sand around climate change. They're pushing aggressive policies like nuclear. And even this week, we've heard Jacinta Price talk about making Australia great again, which is obviously a Trump line. So the return of the Liberal Party, the spectre of that really galvanised me to get up off the couch. And I feel like the Labor Party have made such strong inroads over the last 3 years, but they've built the foundation, and now we need that extra term to really keep building it out. So if I'm elected as the candidate for Bradfield, that's what I'll be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what has surprised me, really the whole experience, because I'm not a career politician, I'm brand new to the scene. So I think the biggest shock for me, and it's a little bit reinforcing what Nicolette said, I'm really surprised at how many people in Bradfield are well informed. Like the level of depth of knowledge around policies has blown me away. And I think it's wonderful, you know, as you alluded to as well, great reflection on democracy working well. But that has been the biggest surprise for me.
Yeah, fantastic. Gisele, we have you for a moment.
We certainly do, Paula, and I've tuned in from my phone as well to see if I can somehow get the balance right, because when I have my video on, it's just not letting me speak. So hopefully this works. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay? Do the words match the lips?
Yes, they do. Yes, we're good. It's working. Oh no.
Fantastic. Thank you. And can I just say again, no?
Yes, I can hear you. It's delayed though.
Oh no. No.
Have a try though.
Let's see what we can do. I might just need to go. All right. To say how brilliant it is. Hear that?
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard
Yes.
when it sounds. Oh, we've lost you again.
Okay, great.
Maybe it's...
just to say how brilliant it is.
I can't tell. Gisele, maybe try from your phone, and while you're sorting that out, we might go to Eddie next.
Okay, thank you for having me here. I'm coming to you live from Bundjalung country here. And it's been a beautiful rainy day just before Blues Fest. The town's heaving, and I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Okay, so why am I running? Well, I've been involved in politics for a while. I was a local councillor on Lismore City Council for about 5 years, and I ran for the state seat of Sydney about 10 years ago for Labor, because I used to be a member of the Labor Party. But I resigned from the Labor Party because I want a future for my son and for myself and for my community. What keeps me up at night is worrying about my neurodivergent son and how he's going to negotiate this world that is being rapidly reshaped by climate breakdown. And also in regards to running for the Senate, which I'm very excited about, I'm a lawyer. And a criminal defence lawyer, and I spent a lot of time watching Senate estimates, and I think that my skills as a criminal lawyer will particularly come in handy in Parliament. So yes, I used to be in the Labor Party. I lived in Lismore during both the 2017 and the 2022 catastrophic fossil fuel floods, and I will never forget that. I will never forget that. I remember I got rescued off the roof with my family, and I remember after like 72 hours of rain, I thought that we had flipped a switch to the other side. Like the water did not stop. The velocity meant we couldn't get in our kayaks to get out of there. We got rescued by a neighbour, and I stood by and advocated for my community as we tried to rebuild our homes and also rebuild our trust in the institutions that should really have prevented this. I mean, just imagine where you're all now. You're all sitting at home. We're all comfortable. We're all cozy. Just imagine every single item in your home turfed out into, you know, garbage. Like everybody on the floodplain lost every single thing that they ever owned. Photos, books, furniture, every single thing. And so seeing that devastation and being with my community along the front lines of that has really driven me to really get involved in politics. And I've been very disappointed in the lack of support that our community was given to build in a way that prepares for and adapts and gets us ready for the next event. I've done a lot of environmental law as well. I've been in the forest. I did brave forest protectors, and I've argued for, you know, in court about the value of the forest and how they play such a vital role in storing carbon and sustaining life, and the stupidity of native forest logging still continuing today. What's surprised me the most this campaign is the tone of conversations with the community. It's changed dramatically. People are getting switched on. The cost of living is really hurting people. And I think that's why they're becoming more and more engaged to politics to find out who's making these decisions and why. And they're asking those tough questions. They recognise now that this two-party major duopoly isn't working for them. It's working for the corporations that bankroll it. And the fossil fuel companies and gas giants, those are the very industries that are fueling these catastrophic climate events, but they're the ones that are calling the shots. And I think people are really sick of it, much like when we look at the supermarket duopoly of Coles and Woolies, where we see our choices limited and the quality go down and the price go up. That's the same as with this major party duopoly. We're not getting diversity. We're not getting representation. We're seeing quality go down, and we're not getting value for our vote anymore. So I've found hope in those conversations, and it's great to see that more people are realising that we do not have to have this duopoly anymore, that actually a minority government has served the better in the past. And so that's what lights my fire and gives me strength, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. Now, Gisele, will we have another crack? It's almost like I jinx it.
Let's give it one more go if we
Absolutely.
can, Paula. I would love that.
definitely.
Phone and the look, I'm going to try, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Okay. It's unfortunate because
Let's, I just want to say thank you for having me along this evening. Of women who are able to.
I think we might have to move on. That is not very good internet, I must admit. It's going to be problematic, unfortunately. Sad because it would have been great to hear what Gisele had to say as well. Okay, I'm going to move to our second question. I'm really conscious of time, so we will try and keep it short in response, although it is a bit of a meaty question, but it will set up the Q&A opportunities for people to follow on with. So the discussion is around cost of living. Eddie, you brought it up already, and it's a major issue for Australians at the moment. And we know that it is linked to the increasing impacts of climate change as well. We know that Australian households could save $2,000, $3,000 per year on their energy bills by transitioning to an all electric home with solar and batteries and EV purchases and for EV purchases. Not to mention the health benefits of electrification in housing. There's actually quite a lot to also go into, but not tonight. That could be another whole session. As Bree mentioned, our 1 Million Women community told us they're super keen to electrify, but there are barriers. Upfront costs, there is this situation for renters, which is obviously difficult, people in apartments are dealing with strata, and also social housing. So if we look at the spectrum of people, opportunities, it's quite a varied response in household electrification and to reduce cost of living impacts. So as part of the Canberra delegation, we had many discussions regarding the cost of living and the comparison of those who are on the path or have almost fully electrified their houses is really stark. Some of the stories we heard from the ladies in social housing and renting were really unfortunate, and we want to see that change. We really want to see that change as 1 Million Women. That's what we're really passionate about. We want cheap, affordable energy now. So the question to you all is, if elected, what initiatives will you be championing in Parliament for household electrification? Now, I will start with Louise this time.
Here I am. Look, thanks for the question, Paula. I think we've started off in a really, really impressive way here. I mean, obviously, we've done a lot of things at national level. We've up at the point now where we've got 1,000 solar panels being installed across Australia every week. We've just announced our 30% subsidy for household batteries, and all of those are making an enormous difference. Because we recognise the value in those types of initiatives, we want to roll these out community-wide. And we realise that there's some people who, because of social or economic barriers, don't have the opportunity to take those sorts of initiatives up. So we've got a few examples that I wanted to share with you that we have in place and that we want to keep rolling out. We have something called the Social Housing Energy Performance Initiative, and that has $800 million in federal funding, and it's got potential to get up to $1 billion with help from states and the territories. And what we're doing is we're working with 100,000 social housing homes. That's where we're aiming to get to by 2029. And we're doing things like installing solar panels for them, offering them better insulation, more efficient appliances, draft proofing as well. So simple changes that can make a real difference and save families up to $1,800 a year. We've also introduced a new program, which is called the Solar for Apartment Residents program. And this is jointly funded by the New South Wales government and the federal government. There's a similar program in Victoria as well. And it's a $25 million investment. And what it does is it provides co-funding to eligible owners, corporations and strata managers to install shared rooftop solar systems. So it covers up to 50% of the costs of putting those solar panels in that every apartment renter can actually access. Another initiative that we've introduced is the Solar Banks program. So that's all about bringing the benefits of solar energy to people that don't have, who can't put panels on their own roof. And it allows you to lease a share in a local solar farm, and then the savings go straight to your household bill. Of course, we've also got community batteries. There's one down the road here in Camaray, and we're committed to rolling out another 400 across Australia. So I think we've made a really great start. There wasn't anything in existence like this with the Liberal government, and I haven't heard anything in their policies about rolling out similar policies moving forward. So if I'm elected to represent our community, I'd be wanting to keep working on these types of initiatives and keep them rolling out.
Awesome. Thanks, Louise. I'm going to throw to Eddie next.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, look, this election is going to be historical, and it's exciting because we're actually going to have the opportunity to vote in a minority government that is going to be able to deliver the kind of things that our community want. And I think what the major parties ignore too much is the number of renters in our country who are doing it extremely tough, who are trying to keep up with constant rent rises. So one of the policies that the Greens have is to make sure that renters have the right to solar without any upfront costs, and so that a landlord cannot block that unless they've got some kind of very solid reason. So what this will mean is cheaper bills, better energy, and we're talking about $2,000 a year is what the Greens have costed the savings to be to renters, and that's food on the table, that's school shoes for the kids, that's just breathing space for when things are getting pretty tight. And the Greens are also going to deliver grants and low interest loans to help people get off gas and install batteries and electrify their homes. I'm very fortunate where I'm renting at the moment that we have the landlord already has the solar panels and the batteries. So I'm really lucky that my bills are really not that bad compared to what a lot of people are having to pay out there without solar and batteries. It is just a no-brainer, and I don't understand why it has taken so long for the major parties to deliver this. I mean, all I can assume is that they're not listening to the people, they're listening to the fossil fuel donors who are filling their pockets and, you know, telling them to open up more new coal and gas, so they don't have any incentive to really do substantial work around helping communities save and cut down their cost of living. So it's more than just about saving money, though. Of course, it's about safety, it's about dignity, and making sure that no one gets left behind, and so that we've got a cleaner future together.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. And Nicolette?
Thank you. It's everything that Louise and Eddie has already said. This, as I probably didn't get through clearly enough, climate change, electrification, and responsible investing, excuse the potential oxymoron there, but investment where we put people and planet at the centre of decisions that work for us, that, you know, putting finance and business to work for solutions. That's kind of been my modus operandi for the last 30 odd years. And I have run energy efficiency for households at the Sustainable Energy Development Authority, and was the first climate change campaign manager at the Australian Conservation Foundation, and worked on climate policies for land-based sector in the Climate Institute, and helped stand up the Clean Energy Finance Corporation and various other things. So when I say I love what I'm hearing from Labor and from the Greens, I really do, and more. And so I'm just going to summarise really that I think, so rather than duplicate, I think it's really important that we do prioritise the most vulnerable, and I think Eddie called that out really strongly. That's people living in public and social housing. It's also a really quick win for government to do some economy-scale retrofits. And the systemic savings to government as well from lower energy costs in terms of Commonwealth rent assistance and so forth is right there for the taking. And the renters, absolutely, that divide between landlords who don't put in efficiency savings or solar and the renters who have to pay those really disproportionately large energy bills needs to be solved. Allegra Spender has a proposal at the moment, the Independent Wentworth, about up to a $25,000 tax write-off that you can process through the ATO if you're a landlord to help landlords when the water heater breaks down, they can access that interest-free loan effectively or instant tax write-off to choose a more efficient appliance over one that just fits possibly what the plumber wants to put in. And then easy ones. In Bradfield, we're really low rooftop solar. We have about 17, 19% rooftop compared to 1/3 in the country. But my goodness, if we got a battery for every one of those and then kept going, that's where low-hanging fruit is. We've got a lot of private money that's willing to be part of the solution if we can just make it easier for them. And so I double down on making extending the SRES to include household batteries in particular. But there's more opportunities. Obviously, we've got in Bradfield, we're one of the highest registrations of electric vehicles in the country. And we don't have vehicle to home or vehicle to grid capabilities and that's a conversation between the federal, state government and some of the network providers as well, plus the regulators. That needs to start now because it could take as much as 18 months to get that done, and it impacts things like fireys and other building codes and what have you. So that's complex, but it's such an opportunity, those batteries on wheels that sit parked 1 to 5%, 95 to 99% of the time. So that's about using the idle assets to put them to work. And then just with my energy efficiency hat, we talk a lot about putting in solar and batteries, but reducing energy costs also helps make homes more comfortable and healthy. We talk a lot about electrification. There are everything from weather stripping to better glazing to pelmets and curtains to reverse cycle air conditioning to efficient water heaters. And efficient water heaters is my nerdy, boring technology call out, because if we can get, rather being a dumping ground for so many countries that make these things who have minimum energy performance standards for these appliances, we should have at least we shouldn't be that way. We need to have efficient water heaters. They are like another battery. So when the solar's, making electricity in the middle of the day, we can dump that into our water heaters and use the water heating at nighttime and it has to be Internet of Things enabled so that we can also become prosumers rather than just consumers in this new world of I suppose, an electro economy. It's so exciting. We can have so much independence, and households can be so equipped to be part of the solution. So that's Paula's given me.
I was actually just going to ask, when you're talking about water heating, are you talking about heat pumps?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
Okay.
Yes. So they're those magical things that actually create more energy output than goes in. And someone explained that once to me, and I have to take their word for it. But the other part really is just to call out that gas in the household sector just doesn't make sense. We have to electrify, but gas will probably have a role for the short to medium term in some commercial and industrial processes. It's a feedstock for some like polymers in medical uses, but burning very precious hydrocarbons, which are very bad for climate change in our homes, which contribute to, and I'm an asthmatic as well, but even flued gas is a trigger, is absolute madness. And we know now that it just needs to stop. So that's why all new building codes, everything has to start aligning with electrification, because the average home is up there for 95, 97 years, and it's a very slow turnaround. And we have to start now enabling people to have cheaper energy bills by electrifying homes.
I completely agree. I think it's really important, like you talked about closing up the building envelope is a massive win, because even if you electrify without that building envelope being closed, you still are wasting. There's still waste there. You need to do that. And
do have to say If you're somewhere like Queensland, you might, or Northern Territory, you might actually not want to have artificial heating and cooling. So actually having a nice, highly ventilated or a home you can use as an appliance by turning it on and off with the doors and the windows, it has to be considered. So it's going to be fit for the climate.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I put a call out for anybody to ask some questions in the chat. We had one question. Louise was straight in there and got her answer in. While we get some questions in the chat, I've got another question that I had prepared earlier. So one of the things that we see in the northwest of Sydney, in the north of Sydney, is the impacts of fire, storms, etc. And a lot of the impacts of climate change on our environment and our lives. And Eddie, you just explained a massive impact that you've experienced as well. What this has also done is increased insurance premiums. Like, we know that the insurance industry have climate actuaries and climate risk specialists who are spending a lot of time assessing what is happening. So how do we go about addressing the insurance premium rises, and particularly with regard to exclusions for fire and flood zones, and the increase of homes therefore being uninsured as a result? Like, there is a bigger social effect, and I'll throw to you, Eddie, first, because you've lived it, particularly in Lismore. And how do we go about dealing with that issue, because it is a cost of living issue as well. Australians are paying $500 more a year on their insurance premiums because of climate change now. So, Eddie.
Yeah, well, I think the answer is pretty obvious. Make polluters pay for the damage that they've caused. That would be the short form answer there. I can tell you hundreds of stories of many community members in the Northern Rivers that are facing not being able to insure their homes. One of my dearest friends lost everything in the flood. She was well and truly in the bowl of Lismore in the flood, went right up to the second floor, everything turfed out, every single thing. She didn't get a buyback. She didn't get assistance from the government to retrofit, get ready for the next one. She's a single mum of 2 children. She told me the other day she went and got a quote to get insurance and for flood, and it was $30,000 a year. And now apparently the insurance companies have got together and decided that they are no longer going to insure. They're going to include storm as well. So she won't be able to. She could get storm insurance before, but now that's just going to come under the same heading as flood. So it's something that a lot of people in my community and around New South Wales who are hit with fires and floods are facing this such a grave, insecure future that they have, and one of the reasons I want to run for this, I'm running for the Senate, is because only, I think, 9 out of the 12 senators from New South Wales are in a city. They all live in Sydney. And I think you really need the Senate to be represented with people from the regional areas who have some lived experience and an idea of what it's actually like on the ground. But in terms of Greens policies, obviously we want to have some kind of public insurance pool and a disaster fund that corporations, fossil fuel operators donate to. Obviously, we want to end the subsidies. We know in the last year there was like $14.5 billion given to coal mines, oil and gas operations in Australia, and we feel that money should be diverted to support communities in adapting with infrastructure and preparing for and recovering from these climate disasters that are coming more and more frequently at a greater intensity. So there's a disaster recovery fund that we want to set up that's going to be used to rebuild those communities, funded by those that have destroyed those communities with their continuing operations. And so again, I just have to say, only a minority government with progressive independents in power will deliver that. They will ensure that the billions of dollars of subsidies are directed to delivering the clean energy, green jobs and infrastructure to our communities.
Thanks, Eddie. Louise. Do you ever, I mean,
Yeah, look, what I'd like to say here is we're really taking a considered and long-term approach. So we know this is an enormous problem. And as you said, Paula, it really does add to those cost of living pressures. So what we've done in our most recent budget, we've allocated quite a significant amount to establish something called the Insurance Affordability and Natural Hazards Risk Reduction. And that's going to be a course where we talk to all of the different stakeholders within this area, whether it be climate specialists or the insurance groups, and really work out what is the best solution to help mitigate this problem, because we understand it's a really important issue that we need to resolve. So we're starting our work on that. The other thing that I would say is that we have got in place the Disaster Ready Fund, and that's an enormous $1 billion project from the federal government. And that's all about identifying ways to adapt to the impacts of climate change and deal with climate change events. And it's rolled out across all levels of government. We've seen it utilised most recently in Queensland with the floods and the cyclone that didn't happen. But it looks at the physical and the social impacts of disasters as well. So we're looking at having a multi-pronged approach to this issue.
That we need to be in climate adaptation. We are well past trying to stop climate change. So all these things are super important, especially to look at things holistically across cause, where people are at now, and what we can do to make people's lives better and safer. Nicolette, did you have a response?
Yeah, I did. So, yes, Eddie, we sent some of our corflutes after the 2022 election up to the Northern Rivers area as temporary shelter, and it's just like, I don't know if it's ironic or not, but just like heartbreaking that they were useful in that respect. So we have to not only strengthen building codes for homes and businesses, but we have to give people the opportunity, the choice, that if they don't want to rebuild in climate vulnerable areas, that they're supported properly to relocate their lives, because that's not something they're going to take lightly. We have to provide financial support for retrofit buildings to protect them from more frequent storms and floods and fires. And the Resilient Building Council is an initiative that I encourage you to have a look at. I'd love to look at combining the concept of resilience with preparedness, as in reducing emissions and mitigating in the one tool. But the RBC have a 4-star standard that they say, if a building can be this, there's a group of insurers that who partner and say, we will insure you. And so I want to see how the government can partner again with those groups to give the financial assistance to people to meet that 4 stars, so that they can have a long-term financial opportunity to be insured, because that just adds a whole level of anxiety if you cannot insure your home. Obviously, you can't even get a mortgage if you can't insure your home. So this has to be solved, and the government has a role in it. And then I think we have to provide additional services for local emergency services. There are a number of people in my volunteer corps who are also working at the RFS as volunteers. Can we continue to rely on the volunteer generosity of people? I mean, some people were responding to the bushfires in 2019, 2020, 2020, that's right, were taking literally months off, not just in response, but in recovery time from a wellbeing perspective. Not reasonable to expect that to be on the shoulders of volunteers. And then I think we have to also acknowledge that the ability of the natural world to buffer human settlement from the shocks and strains of climate impacts is massive. So there's not only do we have a climate crisis, we have a biodiversity we have a biodiversity crisis. And if we do things like aggressively repair riparian zones, making sure that they have you know, the trees to hold back the banks and so forth. If we have rivets that also provide, you know, we can have seaweeds and other sequestration opportunities offshore to keep storm surge away from coastal settlements, or even we have cool burns or cultural burns around suburbs to manage take out some of the fuel that's in those hot fires that do threaten places in Bradfield, like North Arramurra. Those things go hand in glove, and we get great conservation outcomes whilst also helping prepare for the worst of it. And I will say, finally, as someone who's experienced this myself, the younger generation Australians carry a burden of climate anxiety with them like no other generation before. And if we can help prepare them by educating them at preschool, primary school, high school, not in a, oh my gosh, the world's falling in, but we are living in a changing world. And here's what you need to know about it, and here's what you can do, so they feel some sense of agency to be prepared, to be able to respond and to recover much better together with life skills. So that change to the curriculum is something that if I'm elected, I'd really like to propose and get done as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicolette. I just wanted to go back a step. One of the things you said around conservation and like rebuilding riparian zones and managing cool landscape and country with cool burning. That is what I think is also something that seems a bit of a competing interest, particularly in Bradfield and in the north, where we're all banked up against national parks, etc. Do you think how do you think we go about dealing with those competing interests where it comes to like the 1050 bushfire zone clearing from, and then managing sort of for fire breaks, etc., but also managing that kind of biodiversity and not just clear felling space to for climate, I guess, climate mitigation versus resilience adaptation kind of conflict.
Yeah, and yes, there are some conflicts, but there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be.
Mhm.
There should be a conversation that starts 40 years ago and it happens with all members in the community about the realities of where they live and what they can expect. And it has to, when people understand the trade-offs or they understand why there are different decisions being made around vegetation management, I think we have people that want to participate in being part of the solution. It's just a lack of solid education from good based science and storytelling from Indigenous Australians have got eons of experience in this stuff. Can we bring that back, please? Right. So I just think we got distracted for a few hundred years. We thought we had the solution. We now know though that when we do look after nature, it looks after us, and we just need to again focus on. It's not going to be an overnight solution, but we have to start that journey of facing living in a changing climate, and it's costing us a crap load as well financially, and we can't have people uninsured, and we can't take down other species with us just because it's too inconvenient or we can't do the hard stuff.
Yeah. Eddie or Louise, do you want to touch on any of that? We do have a couple of questions in the chat that I'll go to after.
I'm happy to. Look, I think that this is an area where, more broadly speaking, the government really has a big role to play. And that is making sure that community are informed of the science and the evidence and are not playing politics with something as serious as the end of the world. I don't want to sound catastrophic, but if you've been through a catastrophic fossil-fueled weather event, you understand what I'm talking about. And I really hope that people don't have to go through that. I think what Nicolette said about our First Nations people, why it's so obvious. Why aren't we listening? They lived here sustainably for 60,000 years. They knew how to manage fire. Why aren't we empowering them to lead us through this new phase that we're living in? And the other thing I would say is that we really need to start empowering communities more generally. And that's been a very disappointing fact in the recovery in the Northern Rivers. And it goes to not the government not being willing to fund community organisations appropriately, like forgetting that it was the Tinny Army that rescued everyone, thousands and thousands of people, when there were just 2 SDS boats. They still haven't properly funded. This is not just Labor, and it's what you're going to get time and time again when you have a major party duopoly. They are running for their donors. They are not there to help the people. So I think we need to see a lot more people being informed about what's actually going on, being given the right information, and empowering communities. I think it's really about local communities being given back the power to run their recovery and their responses and their adaptation the best, because they're the ones that understand their community better than a government or someone.
Thanks, Eddie. Louise, did you have anything to add? I've got a question, but after that, go first, sorry.
Going to talk to that, but it also this answers one of the questions that I saw on the chat there. One of the things as a newcomer to politics that really baffles me is why we don't have a consensus across Australia as to the fact that there is climate change and we need to address it, and renewables are the best way to do that. If you look to the UK, for example, 2019, they declared a climate emergency, and that was across both sides of Parliament. So I think if we could get that, it really shouldn't be a political issue at all. It's not a question. So if we get that bipartisan support, as somebody asked on the chat, and certainly Labor, you've seen through our policies, we absolutely are doing everything we can for the environment in an economically responsible way. But if we get that bipartisan support, I think that would flow through to solutions at every level of the environment, be it renewables, be it conservation, be it anything that touches space.
Absolutely. That was going to be my next question, because it is a great lead in. Like, how do we get multi-partisan support in the government? As you said, this is me talking, but as you said, we all know that when there's a cost of living crisis, it's been acknowledged by everybody. But at this point in time, there seems still to be some, yes, Nicola, it still seems to be some pushback on that.
Yeah, I've got an answer for that one. How do we get multi-partisan support? Is we elect more sensible centre people to the crossbench in the lower house, and we elect people to the upper house who have medium and long-term views in the best interest of our nation. It's really as simple as that. We have the power. We have compulsory voting. We've got preferential voting, and I understand you're going to talk a bit about that in a moment, Michelle. And we have an independent electoral commission. We can get it done now. We have a choice, and that's what this election is about. It is literally that precarious. Like I'm not particularly thrilled with some of the things that Labor's done this time, but I'm also very thrilled with things that they have done. So we have to stay the course on renewables. We have to stay the course on things like Future Made in Australia Act. We need to start paring back on the fossil fuel subsidies. We've got to get our fair share of windfall profits tax as well from multinational corporations, of course, because we could spend that on so many other things. We just need to start being smarter about what's in our national interest. And the power bills are so high, exactly what you're talking about, Paula, because of just that. As soon as the parties get in, they pass the baton and pass the buck. Now I'm seeing the colours of Labor, which has somehow managed to get past those coal communities and to do and I give a call out to Matt Keane, probably a little bit as the Treasurer in New South Wales for a while, who did some the renewable energy hubs in New South Wales, made some effort to do some transition with communities that are impacted from particularly fossil fuel like the Hunter and so forth and the Illawarra. But it's a democracy in 3-year cycles, and we have to take people along with us. So our storytelling about why we're doing it, the benefits, about and our vision for a safe, clean, and affordable home has to come from everybody. Yeah.
Agreed. I'm conscious of time. In terms of the Q&A, I think we will wrap up now. A massive thank you to the three of you. I'm going to hand over to Michelle now, who is going to do the preferential voting information. But I really want to say a massive thank you for coming tonight. It's been a great chat. I've enjoyed myself. Thanks for sharing your time, and over to Michelle.
Hi, so I'm Michelle from 1 Million Women. I was just talking to Eddie before the event started a little bit about the Senate, and I just wanted to talk about that just for a few minutes because I think it's been a long time since a lot of people learn about politics in school, and it's really important to understand the role of the Senate, important role of the Senate. So in Australia, we have the upper house and the lower house. So the Senate is part of the upper house, and it is where legislation that's passed in the lower house goes to be scrutinised. So it's incredibly important. It doesn't get a lot of attention in the lead up to elections. And I think one of the really great things about it and the roles that it plays, it's one of the protections of our privacy, and also, it does stuff like makes good legislation better and stops bad legislation from getting through. We've seen David Pocock with the balance of power, who's done, I think, amazing things in the Senate, which has, inspired everyone, which is, fantastic to see. So, and I think one of the things you really want to avoid in a democracy is to have a majority in a lower house and the same majority in the upper house, where the Senate then stops scrutinising legislation and acts more as a rubber stamp. So just something to give a thought to in the upcoming election, when you're voting, to think about how you would like that Senate to look. You can vote above the line. New South Wales gets 12 spots across the board. So you can vote above the line, I think numbers 1 to 6, and they will be, I think, already parties above the line. So if you want to vote for individual candidates, you vote below the line. So think about the way you'd like your Senate to be made up. If you're voting below the line, don't number the boxes on top of the line. So vote below the line, you have to do a minimum of 12 people. You don't, if anyone remembers, the Senate paper used to be, it still is massively long. You only have to now vote for 12 down the bottom. You don't have to fill them all in if you want to vote for candidates. So it's just really, really good to understand how that's structured. And the other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is preferential voting. So preferential voting is one of the strengths of our democracy. It's really, it means that your vote can't be wasted. You can vote for somebody who's not elected, but your vote doesn't just get thrown out like it would in the US, where you've got, maybe 2 choices, and if you don't like either one, then people just stay at home. But in Australia, if you don't like the 2 people who might be a 2-horse race or a 3-horse race in Australia, you can use your preferences. So there's really important reasons to do that. So in Australia, in the lower house, the lower house, the House of Representatives, you get different rounds of voting. So in the first round of voting, everybody's first preferences is counted, and then it goes on the next round. For a candidate to win, then you need to get 50% of the vote. If no candidates get 50% of the vote in the first round, it goes to the second round. And what happens in the second round is the person with the least amount of votes in the first round is eliminated, but their preferences are then redistributed to the other candidates, and that goes on and on. So, there are really good reasons why you might vote for a minor party or an independent or someone that's not going to win if you really like them. So for every first preference vote a person gets, then that they'll get money. They'll get money for that at the end of the election. So that might help them run a stronger campaign next time. So For example, if climate is the issue that you vote on, I'm a climate voter, so I will give my first preference to the person I think has the strongest climate policies in my electorate. And then even if they have no chance of winning, because I know that they will get some money and that will help them next time, but it also will send a really strong message to the major parties or the people or the independents who are likely to get in, that climate is really important to that electorate. So that's what I wanted to say, to use your preferences wisely, and your vote can't be wasted. And if you put the person that you least like last, I always put the person I like most first, the person I least like last, and then fill it in from there. So, the person you least like, you will never get your vote. So it will always flow on down the line. So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Just on that, I think we'll put a few slides in the chat for anybody who wants a visual representation of what preferential voting looks like. That we also encourage you all to check out the websites of the candidates who are here today, read the policies, and inform yourself on the issues that are important to you and how you vote, like Michelle said. We have a few resource websites that we'll also put in. There's a fabulous new tool called Build a Ballot that has been developed, where you can actually develop your own how to vote card based on the policies that people have announced, and as well as checking out the conversation has a policy tracker, which also helps to inform yourself. Also have a look at how my MP has voted for you, which is on They Vote For You. That's another good website that just helps you to understand what's going on. And lastly, but not least, we encourage you to get involved. Active democracy is so important. Your voice is powerful. And that is what our She Votes campaign is all about, as we've been here, creating opportunities for people to have conversations and raise their voice for climate and for clean, affordable energy now. So this is really, it's about now. So what we're asking everybody to do is to go away from this, think about what you've heard, but have conversations. It's all about storytelling, talking to 10 other people, 10 other women about what you've heard, and ask them to have 10 other conversations. That exponential effect of those conversations is all about how we educate, what we've talked about tonight, and how we share information, and how we inform people to strategically vote for climate and the issues that matter. So lots of links in the chat. It's clearly right here on my other screen. She Votes actions are there as well. Sign up and you'll get some great tools and kits to participate with. And we will also send through a recording of this, send it along, send it around to all your friends, and sign up and get involved. It's really important, like we talked about. And so that's us. And a massive thank you again to our panel for coming. And it's such a shame that Gisele wasn't able to contribute, because it's so important to have the whole spectrum of information in these discussions, which yeah, it's a shame, but we will see whether we can get some information from her and share it around. So thank you and good night.
Thanks everyone. See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have a wave.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Oh my God, tech.
Oh my God. I thought, firstly, Bronte, you're not on the